So if the house cleaning system and your digestive tract is not working together, it can create a world of trouble. So in this video, I'm going to help you understand what this migrating motor complex, as it's called, is supposed to do for our digestive tract, things that can go wrong. We'll kind of go over some studies here to give us indications of things that could be going wrong with this system, and I'll give you some insights into steps you can take to improve the situation if you're having trouble. It's okay if I'm standing in front of these studies and things. We'll make them big when we talk about them, and I'm going to put links to all these studies in the description below so you can dig deeper into this if you want to. So when we're having a migrating motor complex dysfunction issue, that may also be called interdigestive dysmotility. And we talk about interdigestive because it's happening in between meals. It's happening away from the process of digesting your food. So when that's not working correctly, now the body's not clearing out all the junk. So when the food gets acidified in here in the stomach and then it moves down here into the small intestine and all these other actions of digestion take place, and then things start moving through this small intestine, this migrating motor complex takes place after that moves through, and it's supposed to clear out any large pieces of debris that did not get digested, but also bacteria that shouldn't really be there. We shouldn't have a lot of bacteria in the stomach or the small intestine, and this MMC really helps clear that system out to keep that bacteria from creating an overgrowth issue there, or a small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, or SIBO, like all the cool kids have these days. So this system is very important, but I want you to understand that it's not necessarily about motility. It's not about like, oh, I have slow motility, so this migrating motor complex must also not be working correctly. The motility is really about the pace in which the food moves through the system, and this MMC issue is more about the system's ability to clear junk out. So this MMC could be working very slow and not really clearing things out correctly, but a person could still have diarrhea or constipation. So don't view it like it's about the speed at which things are moving through. Motility is really a different issue. And this issue is seen a lot with IBS, functional dyspepsia, where someone might have a lot of discomfort in their stomach after they eat. It's seen a lot with delayed gastric emptying and malabsorption issues like pancreatic insufficiency, along with things like type 2 diabetes, where there's a lot of the sugar going very high and inflammation and such. But the most common viewpoint that people have when their MMC is not working correctly is that, oh, SIBO broke it. So I have this small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, and that kind of broke my MMC, so it's not working correctly. Another viewpoint is that food poisoning permanently damaged the MMC system, so now it's not working. Some people feel like stress or anxiety broke it, and then some people feel like this vagus nerve issues are creating trouble for the MMC. So we'll kind of touch base on all of those, but I really want to look at this number 2 here with the food poisoning viewpoint. And this work was brought to us by Dr. Pimentel's work over at Cedars-Sinai Research, and Dr. Pimentel is considered one of the leaders in SIBO research today, and I like him. I kind of view him as the guy who made this a real thing and made more and more doctors now actually acknowledging this as a problem in the body. So if it wasn't for his work, we would probably still be hearing a whole lot of, hey, I done told you that SIBO ain't even a real thing, so how's it going to give you a tummy ache? Now, take the PPI prescription, I done wrote it for you, and get. So we're very grateful for Dr. Pimentel's work, and what he found in a lot of research was that there are specific bacterial food poisoning issues that can come into the system, and they put out a specific CDTB toxin into the body. Now, this toxin will make the body create antibodies to this toxin, but this toxin is very similar in makeup to vinculin in the cells of the digestive tract. So these are found in the interstitial cells of Cajal, and this is part of the system that kind of helps everything move along during this migrating motor complex. So when the body makes these antibodies, and the antibodies come and attack these cells of the body, now they destroy that, so it's not going to get the signals of, hey, we got to move all this stuff through and clean all the stuff out. And I'll have a link in the description below to a study that showed that when these antibodies were going really high for people, that they also showed ICC levels as much as 3 times lower than the normal level, which is really restricting this from functioning correctly. It wasn't that they had any, but it was a lot lower, and we really want this migrating motor complex to work correctly because we want it to sweep out that bacteria. We want to clear all of that junk out so that this bacteria is not creating some type of overgrowth here and giving us that SIBO issue and all the trouble that comes with that. But with this situation, they'll usually try to wipe out the SIBO and then wait a couple of months to see, does the SIBO come right back, since things are not being cleared out. And if that's the case, they kind of view this as a permanently damaged situation. It was like an autoimmune event, and that can't really be repaired, but they do have a prokinetic medication that can retail for up to $700 a month or so that kind of can clear that out for you. That does appear to be an option that can be available when there are severe cases like that. Let's look at some other factors that might be creating trouble for this MMC system and causing it not to work correctly. One thing that we need to understand is a hormone called motilin. So let's look at this study here on release of motilin after duodenal acidification. And they say that after infusing acid, plasma motilin rose 90% at 4 minutes and was still significantly raised at 45 minutes. Now this is important because motilin is what signals this migrating motor complex into action. It's kind of the messenger that says, hey, it's time to clean house. Now this Pimentel model is showing us that it doesn't matter about the motilin because it's the receiver of that message that has been destroyed and not working correctly. But not everybody has had these things destroyed. A lot of people have MMC trouble without this particular problem going on. So we need to understand motilin's input. This study here, a double-blind placebo-controlled study on the effects of omeprazole on gut hormone secretion and gastric emptying rates, says pre-treatment with 40 milligrams of omeprazole daily decreases the gastric emptying rate and has a substantial influence on the secretion of gastrin, motilin, and CCK. So remember that we need this motilin to kind of tell things to start cleaning house. And this study showed that motilin was much lower when someone was using a PPI drug that turns off stomach acid. So the reason this is a problem is because once this food is acidified in the stomach and comes down here into the duodenum, or the first 10 inches of the small intestine, a lot of people will call this duodenum, but it's just more fun to say duodenum. So when this acid comes down here, it triggers all these hormones that create all of these other actions that are very necessary for us to digest our food correctly. That CCK they were talking about, or cholecystokinin, that's what tells the gallbladder to release bile down here to help us emulsify our dietary fats. It tells the pancreas, hey, we should kind of shoot some enzymes out here and bicarb to help us digest our food correctly. So all of these hormones that take place here in the duodenum are the real engine of our digestive process. They're kind of telling everything, hey, it's time to do this, it's time to do that. So this motilin going higher is important because that triggers this MMC process that's going to be coming out. Now this study here on interdigestive gastroduodenal motility and serum motilin levels in patients with idiopathic delay in gastric emptying showed that when people had this delayed gastric emptying, like we talked about, was very common to see with this MMC dysfunction, that they showed lower levels of motilin. Well, let's think about this. Delayed gastric emptying, we have a video that shares a lot of studies that shows that this is usually a low stomach acid issue. And I'll link to that video in the description below if you want to dig deeper into that and look at the studies that we talk about there. But remember, the stomach's job is to acidify the food and then empty it down here into the small intestine. So if it's not acidifying the food, why wouldn't the emptying be delayed? It's delayed because it hasn't acidified yet. It takes longer to move out because it hasn't broken down enough to where the body feels like it's ready to move out. So when we're looking at this delayed gastric emptying, very common with this MMC, and understanding that both of these issues, either a PPI or delayed gastric emptying, is showing low motilin levels, then it makes sense that these individuals would also have trouble with their migrating motor complex, since the migrating motor complex is not being told to do its job. Now also keep this in mind, someone doesn't need to be on a PPI or have delayed gastric emptying to have low stomach acid. It's very common today. Stress can restrict the body's ability to make this stomach acid. A lot of people feel like stress or anxiety broke their MMC. Well, stress has the ability to turn the body's ability to make stomach acid off. So in a roundabout way, this really could be the problem that created trouble for their MMC. And remember, this stomach acid isn't just important to help us break down our food, it's also the barrier to the whole digestive tract. When these varmints come in on the food that we're eating, they're supposed to die in an acid bath. So when that stomach acid isn't there, that leaves the front door open. Now all the bad guys can come in, they can come down here and set up camp and create that SIBO issue. So the front door being open is a big problem when it comes to SIBO, which is why there's so many studies that show this really strong connection between PPI use and SIBO, because we're turning off the stomach acid and leaving the front door open. Now we see we may also be restricting the signal that kicks this MMC that would clean everything out into action as well. Now just remember, just because I'm talking about these studies that say PPIs cause these things, that doesn't mean I'm telling you to stop taking a PPI if your doctor has told you to take one. Remember, I'm not a doctor, I'm not giving anybody medical advice. I'm basically a professional stand-up comic turned nutrition author, because when I lost my voice for 8 years and 23 different doctors couldn't figure that out, I had to dig for my own answers. So now for 20 years, I've been teaching health professionals in more than 40 countries how to teach their clients how to fix the actual underlying causes of problems instead of just covering up the symptoms. But I'll have all those studies below so you can dig through those and figure out the right questions to ask your doctor. But let's look at this other study here, because other people are going to say, well, we looked at this with acid and it really didn't seem to affect the motilin in any ways. But this study says increases in plasma motilin follow each episode of gallbladder emptying during the interdigestive period. And they say gallbladder emptying was followed by steep increase in plasma motilin concentration, and in cases of 2 or more emptying periods during the MMC cycle, the concentrations decreased in between when the gallbladder was not emptying. So remember, this gallbladder empties into the duodenum after the acidic food comes into the duodenum. The cholecystokinin kind of triggers those things to happen. So if this is not acidic enough, the cholecystokinin doesn't get triggered and it doesn't tell the gallbladder to empty. So even if it's really the gallbladder emptying triggering this motilin, that might not happen either if someone doesn't have enough stomach acid. We'll look at this study here on regulation of motilin secretion in the postprandial state in man. And they say these results indicate that the motilin release induced by meal ingestion depend on the balance of food components, and that in normal subjects, duodenal acidification, bile acid, and unknown factors contained in the mixed meal may participate in, at least in part, in postprandial motilin release. So this study seems to have the understanding that, look, yes, stomach acid seems to be very important for motilin, but so does bile release. And the type of food that a person eating could also play factors into this. So with a lot of things in the body, it's really not just about one thing. Multiple things have to happen. Some people feel like it's the stomach emptying that also triggers motilin to go higher. But again, the food has to be acidified correctly or it's not going to empty. It's going to sit there for a long time, and then it's almost going to be like someone snacking all day. Someone snacking all day can restrict this MMC function because it only happens in between meals. But if food is being digested very slowly, then that process being so slow is almost like the person is snacking all day and turning this off. So it feels more like all of these things are important. The duodenal acidification, the gallbladder emptying out, and the stomach emptying out. All those things have to happen correctly to kind of trigger the body like, hey, everything's going into place, let's make it all happen, including this MMC process. So when we're looking at correcting this, if this is a problem for us, something we want to think about is, are we making enough stomach acid? We also want to know, is bile flowing correctly? It's very common today for someone's bile to become too thick and sticky to flow correctly for a wide variety of reasons. So if it's too thick and sticky to flow, it doesn't come down here and help us emulsify our fats, and that means that it's also not going to trigger that motilin to go higher to help the MMC process. So what we help people do is we help people figure out, are they making enough stomach acid? If there's not, there's steps they can take to improve that situation. If bile is not flowing correctly, there are signs that would help you know, oh, it doesn't seem like my bile's flowing. If that's the case, then they can take steps to improve that. Now, if you're new to this channel and you don't know how to do those things, we'll put a link in the description below for our totally free digestion course. that'll walk you through figuring those things out for yourself and help you understand the steps that'll help you fix those things. But even though all this work from Dr. Pimentel is very accurate, it's very hard to argue with. There's a lot of studies that show that this is really happening with some people, but that doesn't mean that it's happening with everybody. And even if some of these cells are damaged, which these studies showed that, oh, maybe half or more are kind of damaged with some of these people, that doesn't mean all of them are damaged. Maybe they're just not getting the signal that it's time to do this MMC. Maybe if the signals were working correctly, it would at least work some of the way. So we really want to make sure that the first part of digestion is working correctly, or it makes sense while the later parts wouldn't work at all. When people feel like SIBO caused this, I think that certainly is a possibility, and overgrowth certainly does have the ability to create some trouble where some of these things are not going to work correctly. But I think in most cases, it's the MMC not working correctly that it's allowing that SIBO to really take hold there. And when we're looking at, vagus nerve issues, it's possible for that to be pinched off, but a lot of the vagus nerve issues are just about things not being signaled correctly. The vagus nerve is not being told that it's time to go into action. We have a video all about your vagus nerve is not broken. I'll put that in the description below as well. So you can see all of these viewpoints have the ability to be kind of right in one way or another, but the underlying issue is not going to be the same for every person. Certainly someone could have damage that can't really be repaired. That's certainly possible in the body. But for the majority of people, it could just be about malfunctions not working correctly. Maybe they don't have enough stomach acid. Maybe bile is not flowing correctly. I'm not going to go into how to fix those things in this video. It'll make it way too long. But we have lots of videos on improving low stomach acid. We have videos on how to improve bile flow. And both those things are covered in that free course that I'll link in the description below as well. But right now, if you want to get insights into, hey, am I making enough stomach acid or not, you can jump over and check out our video on 10 signs of low stomach acid. I can't wait to hear about your results.